Want to live a long and happy life? Welcome. This is where you're going to learn 5 secrets to living a long and happy life. And this is Now Tell Us, where we have guests come and tell us stories. They come and inspire us. They come and educate us on a subject. And always we have great topics to cover because we have great guests with us. Today we have a guest who is known as Rob Schwartz, and he's going to be here with us shortly to tell us about the 5 secrets and much more to that. It's coming from a book that he's edited and was written by his late father. But let me not share everything because he's coming to tell us everything about that. So I would ask you to join me as we go to meet Rob. But before we go, please remember to share this episode with all your friends. If you have a question, ask. We will try our level best to ask based on the secrets. And if you have any comment to make, please, we love feedback. So don't hesitate to give us some feedback. And thank you for your time here. Even if you get to listen to this or watch it after we are through, we appreciate you taking your time and being here. So I won't take one more minute because I'm eager to go and hear what those secrets are. So why don't you join me as we go to meet Rob? Here we go. Hi, Rob.
Hi, Anthony. Great to see you.
Great to see you too. Welcome to Now Tell Us.
Thank you.
It's such an honor to have you here.
It's my honor to be here.
Yes. Where in the world are you?
I'm in Boston or just outside of Boston now.
Okay. And how's the weather?
Actually, it's been really cold the last 4 or 5 days for, late September. So, but that's Boston. The weather jumps around a lot here.
Okay. What could be your morning activities? Because I believe it's morning. It's still morning now.
Well, it's just noon now, but I have a lot of different projects, so I often am doing a lot of correspondence, a lot of email. I can go through all the different projects I have, if you like, maybe at the end. I've been an entrepreneur in the music and film space for a long time, in addition to editing this book, which you mentioned in your introduction. So I have a lot of correspondence to write, people to catch up with, that sort of work.
And that's cool. Yeah, I'm always curious to hear about films.
Sure, we can talk about that too. I've produced 3 feature films and 1 documentary, and we have a great documentary project that we're working on right now.
And is that something that you have majored with all your life, or is something that you picked it at some point and said, hey, I want to go in this direction?
Yeah, I mean, I started from a pretty early age. I didn't major in film in university, but yeah, I started at a pretty early age studying film. And then I actually taught at a film school in Tokyo long time ago. And after that, I got more into the production side and producing films. It's a hard business. If you're in a Hollywood studio, that's one thing. But if you're a little, indie producer like me, it's another thing. So the money is always difficult in film.
Yeah, I get it. I hear that. And then there's all things happening. Like I hear we've got some some noise in the US right now from Hollywood.
About the strike, you mean?
They are striking. I hear they are striking.
Yeah, well, actually, the writer's strike was just settled yesterday.
Oh, okay.
And they're talking about settling the actors' strike. So hopefully everyone will go back to work soon. I mean, the strike's been going on for a long time. So yeah.
But that doesn't affect you since you're independent. I mean,
not at all.
It doesn't affect you.
Yeah.
Okay,
In
that's
fact, in
good.
some way, it's almost good for me because all of those productions are stopped.
Hmm.
People look for work. I'm not, my productions aren't big enough to do use union people. So
I understand. I get that. And films have a connection with books, and today we are going to be discussing about a book. And there's one thing that catches me on this book. It's a book that was written by someone who did not end up publishing it, and then
that's right.
comes someone who decides this book needs to be published. It's not always something that happens on a day to day. So this is why we are having you here on this episode to tell us about this.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
go ahead and tell us everything that we need to
Sure.
know.
I feel like I should give a little bit of the backstory, and I
Go
don't know
ahead.
how
Go ahead.
well known it is in Europe, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
So, the reason that I was able to publish this book, which my father wrote more than 30 years ago, as you correctly state, it's called The Wisdom of Morrie. The reason I was able to publish it is that around 25 years ago, there's the cover, around 25 years ago, my father got ill with ALS, which is a terrible disease. Some of your listeners may know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And he started speaking about what was important in life, what was valuable when you're facing death, what remains with you as something valuable. And he got a lot of attention. And he was on some American TV shows. There's a TV show called Nightline. It had this big, it was a news magazine show. I guess it's still on with Ted Koppel. He's not on it anymore. And after that appearance, a student of his came back. My father was a professor at Brandeis University here in the Boston area. A
Mm-hmm.
student of his came back and started meeting with him. And my father passed away in 1995. And after that, this student wrote a book, and that book is called Tuesdays with Morrie. And
Okay.
that book was like a gigantic success. I mean, we could talk a lot about that book and how it became a success, but that's the background. So my father was the subject of this book that was on the New York Times bestseller list
Mm-hmm.
for 5 consecutive years. Number
Mm-hmm.
one for 5 consecutive years. So it's this incredible bestseller. It's been translated into something like 40 languages. I'm sure it exists in Greek. I don't
Okay.
know about some other languages, but it definitely exists all across Europe. And I know that it's in many, many Asian languages as well. I mean,
Mm.
each individual country I'm not sure about since your show is so international. But it's extremely famous here in the United States. There was also a movie, which I didn't have any part in, by the way. And there's a play. The guy who wrote the book is called Mitch Albom. He wrote a play as well, and
Mm-hmm.
he's written many, many books since then. But this
Mm-hmm.
was the first book that he wrote, which wasn't about sports, because originally he was a sports writer. So
Okay.
that's the background. The Tuesdays with Morrie was this huge success and kind of a cultural touchstone here in the United States from, let's say, 1998 when it became a hit until, I don't know, maybe about 2010.
Mm-hmm.
So it started to lose some of its uh, like, how can I say,
Action.
like
Action.
well, just like it was just a book that everybody knew. It was
Okay.
like, referring to Gone with the Wind. At a certain point, when I was talking to people and mentioning who my father is, and my father is Morrie of Tuesdays with Morrie, I didn't have to say, like, do you know the book Tuesdays with Morrie? Like, everybody knew it. It was an
Okay.
absurd question to say,
Mm-hmm.
do you know the book Tuesdays with Morrie? Nowadays, it's a little different because
Yeah.
the book is published like 30, almost, well, 27 years ago or something like that. 20, I guess it's 25 years ago the book is published.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Um, but so just to give you the backstory, the book that we have now that I've edited and I've published, The Wisdom of Morrie, my father actually wrote before he got ill. So he wrote it from 1988 to 1992. And it was after he was retired from university. He actually didn't want to retire, but they kind of forced him to retire. At that time, they made people retire at 70. So
Mm.
he had free time and he really had time to think about, like, what does it mean to be aging and how does society view me and how do I think about myself? He was a social psychologist and a sociologist, so these questions are sort of very natural to him. And he wrote the book from 1988 to 1992. And then he tried to get it published and he wasn't able to. And then he got ill, as I mentioned, and he put the book in a desk drawer. And this whole Tuesdays with Morrie meeting Mitch phenomenon sort of happened, and he passed away. And I rediscovered the book some years later in
Mm-hmm.
his desk. And I
Mm-hmm.
found the manuscript, and I had talked to him about it when he was writing it. So I knew about the book, but he had never published it. And of course, it's got wonderful insights in it, which we can talk about. And my
Yeah.
father was kind of a public figure at this time. So I was able to publish it. I added some essays for context and
Mm-hmm.
information about my dad's life. People are very interested in my father. And that's the story of how I was able to publish The Wisdom of Morrie.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
And something that I am wondering, and I guess our listeners or viewers could be wondering also, what's in that book, Tuesdays with Morrie, that it became
Okay.
so famous?
Okay. Yeah. So I take it you've never heard of it, which is not surprising given where you're located and your age.
Mhm.
Like I said, it was 25 years ago that it was a big hit. So you were probably a young boy.
Maybe I think no. At that time, I was thinking. I think I was in high school.
Yeah,
Not so
okay, you were in
young.
high school, but it probably didn't penetrate the
No,
culture
I
of
did come
wherever you
across.
were, right? So
Yeah.
this is a book about an old professor, my father, and a young man, a relatively young man, Mitch, who comes to meet him, and they discuss like what is important in life, what is really valuable, and when you're facing death, what is really going to be important to you. And my
Mm-hmm.
father also talked very openly about death, which
Mm-hmm.
is kind of taboo in American culture. I mean, it's become better and better. Remember, this was like 27 years ago he was having
Yeah.
this discussion. It's
Mm-hmm.
become better, but at that time, it's still pretty taboo. So that was kind of taboo busting.
Okay.
And also his wisdom about what's important in life and values. And you have to remember, my father was a professor, as I said,
Mm-hmm.
of psychology and sociology. So he had
Okay.
a lot of insight into society and into how people think and how people live their lives, and maybe to offer suggestions to them on how, what's really important in life and what's not as important. I can give you some of the sort of little tidbits from
Mm-hmm.
that book to
Mm-hmm.
give you a feeling for what my father is saying. So, one of the things he said in that book is when you're on your deathbed, when you're facing your final days, the size of your bank account is going to be absolutely meaningless. It will
Mm-hmm.
have no meaning whatsoever. But the time that you shared with your loved ones and your family and your friends, this is going to be the thing that you remember and that you cherish in your
Mm.
last moments. So that gives you an idea on how to live your life, right?
Oh,
And
yeah,
I
yeah.
think, especially in this country, people are so hyper focused on their career and making money and stuff that they kind of forget that the sweetest parts of life are not related to that at all.
Mm, mm. Yeah, living the American dream. I could hear it.
Yeah,
They want to
yeah,
live
yeah,
it, not just
yeah,
talk about it.
exactly,
Now,
exactly.
I kind of, because now I hear many people talk about that and give that perspective of the last days of a person and the
Yeah.
most valuable thing that they look back upon. Could there, could it have all come from your dad and the people, the many people I hear talking about?
Yeah, I mean that's a difficult question to answer, but certainly, ideas get put out into the public and then they get, heard and repeated and reformulated and thought about by other people. And, sometimes we have ideas that we think are original ideas. And then occasionally we figure out like, oh, actually, I read that in a book 30 years ago that I completely forgot about or what have you. But the
Mm,
point is that culture, as you know, is this big mass of ideas that get mixed together, and this beautiful stew of ideas and culture, and however it comes out and is expressed to people is fantastic. I mean, the fact that my father is an author of this particular idea is not the important part. The important part is to get the idea into people's minds and to hopefully help people live a happier life. And that's
that's
also what the book that we'll talk about from now, The Wisdom of Morrie, is about. That's exactly what my father was trying to address, particularly with people who are aging. but it's definitely applicable to people across all age range.
Oh yeah. So let's talk about a bit more on that, because yes, I would like to know the secrets to living a long and a happy life.
That's
Can
funny.
you-
I actually can tell them to you like bang bang bang. I
Okay.
can give you five things. You
Mhm.
have. I don't want to like preempt your other guests, but I can give you five things. But I feel like we should do a little bit more backstory on the
Okay.
book, and then we can work up to it. Maybe keep your audience on the edge of its
Oh
chair.
yeah, yeah.
What are those five things?
Yeah.
Because I feel like my father kind of wrote this book in two parts. And the
Okay.
second part is like the secrets. I mean, he didn't call them secrets, he just calls them techniques or advice or whatever. But we'll
Mhm.
get to that. So
Yeah.
when I say he wrote it in two parts, I alluded to it earlier when we were talking about it. He was forced to retire. And so he was forced to think of himself as an aging person. And he
Hmm.
had never considered himself an aging person because he taught students who were like 18, 19 years old. He was always around very young people. He
Hmm.
was this kind of person that was full of energy and full of life and always exploring something new or reading or lecturing and really just full of energy. One of the small memorial services we had for him, one of my cousins got up and said that my father always seemed ageless to
Hmm.
him. And
Hmm.
then when he said it, I just realized it was like so accurate. He just seemed ageless. I mean, of course, at the end of his life, he was very weak and feeble. But other than that, because of the disease, right? He had
Yeah.
ALS. But other than that, he always just seemed ageless, just bouncing around. So, in this perspective, you can see why he never really thought of himself as an aging person. But
Hmm.
once he was forced to retire, he had to come to terms with the fact that society looked at him as an aging person. And
Hmm.
he had to realize that. And he also, then he started to investigate, why am I uncomfortable with that? Why don't I like the fact that society sees me this way? And he
Hmm.
realized that he had sort of internalized these ageist ideas and these ageist tropes that we have in our society, that elderly people aren't good for anything and their contribution to society is finished and they should just go and sit in a corner. And he thought this was just so incredibly wrong.
Hmm.
Ageism is so wrong, like all the other isms that we've come to realize are really poisonous in our
Yeah.
society, like sexism and racism, right?
Hmm.
Ageism is the same thing. There's no reason to judge a person by their age, right?
Hmm.
So that
Hmm.
was the first part of the book. My father was attacking these ageist ideas and trying to show how poisonous they are and try and encourage people who are aging. You can do anything you want. And in fact, could be the best time of your life. And the
Hmm.
fact that you've lived this long, survived this long, means you've accumulated wisdom and knowledge and experience, which you can share with other people. And he
Hmm.
thought it was so crucial to get this message out to aging people. So that's sort of like the first part of the book. And I should add one thing, he actually coined a term. So if this term enters the general society, then we'll know it was from my father. He coined a term called age casting. And by age casting, he took it from the film expression typecasting, right? And
Okay.
age casting is like pushing an elderly person into one role, and they can only play one role. In the same way, you say this actor can only play one type of role; they have to be the bad guy or something like
Yeah.
that. That's
Yeah.
typecasting. So
Hmm.
age casting is saying elderly people can only do one thing, whether it's sit in the corner or watch TV or whatever. And he said it's just so wrong, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
age casting and ageism are both things that we have to try and eradicate. So that's kind of the first half of the book. And it goes on from there, but I'll let you tell me what you think so far.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Good, good,
Ageism.
good.
Yeah, I haven't had that. So we will be keeping our ears open to hear
Oh,
whether it's
thank
going
you.
to catch up with the
Thank
society,
you.
and
Thank you. Yeah.
is going to be used over and over. Now,
Let's hope.
and
Yeah.
I love this aspect. This already the idea of him trying to change this perspective inspires me.
Yeah.
because you meet, I meet with, okay, I like hearing wisdom from old people, those people who have been there before me and they have
Right.
gathered quite some
Right.
wisdom.
Right.
And one of the things that challenges me, that I'm always not willing to listen, is excuses coming from a person who says that's past me because I'm old now.
Right.
And
Right.
I say, no, 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 please don't mention that.
I
Don't have
totally
to, you
agree.
don't have to put off your dreams just because your numbers on the calendar are much
Right.
more
Right. Well, I
than
think
your
you'd love
dreams.
this book then. I want to send you a copy. I don't know if you got a copy. I certainly can send you a digital copy easily, but you'll
Okay.
love this book because that's exactly what my father is saying. I mean,
Mhm.
he discusses a lot of different things in this book, and I'll go into the way the book is put together because it's very unusual, actually.
Okay,
But
go
he
ahead.
discusses a lot of different things. So he doesn't just say, like, you can do whatever you want, period. I mean, that's a nice sentiment, but we
Mhm.
know that that's not realistic, right?
Yeah, yeah,
People have
yeah.
challenges in their life. So
Mhm.
he addresses each challenge: physical challenges, psychological challenges, regret. He has a whole section on regret and
Mhm.
what you can do with it and how you can approach it. As I said earlier, my father was a psychologist in addition to being a sociology professor and a
Yeah.
therapist. So he dealt with these issues with people throughout his whole life, trying to
Mhm.
help them. So in some ways, this is a distillation of his, understanding and his knowledge about those things. So he addresses a lot of different stumbling blocks and a lot of different issues. It's not just like, you can do whatever you want, let's go. It's like, no, maybe you'll have this problem. Maybe you'll have this problem. This stands in your way. Or, you need to work through this. And some of these things are not so simple. It's not like he says, oh, you can work through it in one day. It's like, no, it takes a lot of work to work through regret. He also has chapter on despair. He has a great section on solitude versus loneliness,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Two sides of the same coin, but solitude is, can be a very positive thing, and loneliness is generally quite a negative thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So he discusses these things. And then one other thing I like to add is this book isn't just my father's like narrative, him explaining things A, B, C, D, E. He thought, I want to try and make this book like energetic and full of life and full of color because that's what he was like
Mhm.
personally. So
Mhm.
he uses poetry and newspaper articles and quotes from all different thinkers across all different fields and cultures, and all sorts of different writing. And because of this, when I worked with the designer, I said we want different typefaces. Some of it looks like it's handwritten. We have color that runs throughout the book. I mean, every book, I should grab a copy and show you. Every book just has white pages, but this we have blue and purple and red running through the book to try and like give it life, because that's what
Mhm.
my father was like. So in that way, it's a very unusual book. And you saw the cover. The cover is like white with rainbow colors to try and to express that life and joy. And you see the subtitle is Living and Aging Creatively and Joyfully, and that's what he's aiming for. He's aiming to like help people be more creative and more joyful.
Hmm. Wow, seems quite a book, quite a book.
Thank
We'll
you.
be eager
Thank
to
you.
go and find out more of what is in there. But please give us the secrets.
Okay, I'll give you 5. So I think some of these are more applicable to
Mhm.
aging people. I'm actually going to give 6.
Oh,
A
you're
bonus
kind.
one just
You're
for Anthony.
generous. You're generous.
Well, my father wrote it. I'm just the reporter, really.
Okay.
Um, so some of them, as you'll see, are more aimed towards aged, people who are aging, and some of them are equally applicable to anybody, any age of life. I would say some of them are actually even more applicable to younger people. And
Mhm.
when I go through them, you'll easily be able to pick out which one is which. Maybe not more applicable, but equally applicable. So the first one, and this is really one for aging people, is my father noticed that aging people, some of them seem to get very dour and very serious, And he thought that this was just wrong. I mean, you don't need to feel that life is so heavy, or that, it's such that your age is such a problem. So he thought that, as with young people, it's so important to incorporate humor and laughter into your life. So he
Mm-hmm.
said, find what makes you laugh and indulge in that, whether it's stand-up comedy or movies or, whatever it is, make sure that you laugh every day. He doesn't
Mm.
necessarily say every day. I'm adding that, but I think it's good advice, right?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Also, I just realized, actually, this is an aside, but I just realized, so my background is I studied philosophy in
Okay.
university, and that
Mm.
actually led me to move to Japan because I was really interested in Japanese philosophy. But one of my favorites at the time when in university was Friedrich Nietzsche.
Mm.
And Nietzsche actually talks a lot about laughter. I just realized that. That's a big thing in his writing. To laugh and to dance are incredibly important. So there's a real relationship there between my dad's thought and Nietzsche. I just realized it talking to you now.
Yeah, they talk. They say that humor, and that which is the one that now brings out happiness, it also relaxes your skin,
Absolutely.
your face. I mean, they talk about that in detail at some point. I can't remember exactly where, but they say that a person who is laughing every day or smiling every day, he will not have wrinkles on his
Yeah,
forehead.
no, I think it's true. I mean,
Yeah,
I think all of those things, as you know, the psychological and the physiological are actually very strongly connected.
yeah,
If
yeah.
you're laughing, you're relaxed, probably bring down your blood pressure,
Hmm.
et cetera, et cetera. So it's super important. The next one is kind of like the opposite, or in some ways the mirror image, but you'll see it's also very important and applicable to anybody at any age. And I think a lot of people on your show have probably talked about this, but I'm going to talk about it as well, is meditation. My
Hmm.
father was a big proponent of meditation. And as he got ill and his body got weaker, he wasn't able to move around as much. He actually meditated more and more because he was sitting down a lot. And it really, really helped him. And, meditation helps you focus your mind, calm your emotions, become, more sort of just even keel. And there have been a lot of studies done, particularly with seniors, that show that seniors who meditate, I think it is the one study said seniors who meditate on average live 5 years longer than seniors who don't meditate. So it
Hmm.
really has a clear physical effect on your body. And of
Hmm.
course, it also just calms you down and relieves you of your worries. So I think that these two are a great pair because they're very different, right? They're kind of opposite. When you're laughing, you're sort of very expressive, and
Yeah,
when you're meditating, you're very, very quiet. But they're both extremely important.
yeah. One of our guests says hi to you.
Hi,
That is Iko
Eiko. She's in
Tanaka.
Japan. Domo,
Okay, good.
hashiburi desu ne. I can speak in Japanese if you like.
Okay, go ahead. Let's hear some
No, it's
Japanese
fine.
here.
So Eiko actually speaks very good English, but もう私、3週間前ぐらい日本に行ったんですが、会えなかったんですね。ごめんなさい。I haven't seen Eiko in a while, but okay. There you
Okay,
go.
okay. Please, Echo, tell us which of the two would interest you much more, the humor or the meditation? Which
Right.
is
Or
your
maybe
most
both.
favorite?
Or maybe
Maybe
both.
both.
Shall I go on? Because I'm going to
Please
do
do.
six
Please
for
do.
you. Our
Please do.
time is dwindling. Okay. So let me see. Where are we? We've got those two.
Okay.
So these other ones are maybe a little bit more. There you go, both. A little bit more aimed towards elderly people, but I think it's applicable to everybody. My
Okay.
father said, especially for aging people, they seem to lose interest in things, right? And
Mm-hmm.
he said it's really important for you to think about what interests you and then pursue it, which means learn more about it. Obviously, it has to be something that interests you. If it's something that doesn't interest you, you're going to be bored and it's going to be a drag. But if
Yeah.
it's something that interests you, you pursue it, you develop it, you keep learning. And it's easier to learn about things that interest you. Keeping learning is a very important technique as well.
Yeah.
But certainly something that interests you is the way to approach this and make it fun and make it enjoyable for yourself.
And
So
again,
this
it's
is
logical
something that's
because
crucial.
you've
Yes,
got all the time in your hands when I mean,
exactly,
and especially if
exactly.
you are working and then you are retired, so now you have a whole day to you. So it's good that you pursue something to keep yourself busy, keep
Right.
your brain cells active.
Exactly. Keep learning, and also something that you find interesting, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
this one pairs very nicely with the next one, which is that my father felt the most important thing in your life, as I alluded to earlier, is your relationships, right?
Mhm.
Your relationships with your family, your relationships with your friends. So to honor those relationships is super crucial. And there's a lot of different expressions of this. It may mean mending a relationship with somebody you had a falling out with. It may mean working through some issues that you have with other people. My father always stressed that you need to approach your relationship with an open heart
Mhm.
and a kind of generosity of spirit, he called it. You know, you may think that the other person did something wrong to you, but the point is to forgive them with an open heart and say the fact that we share good times together is much more important than this thing that I think you did wrong to me, like, 10 years in the past, right?
Yeah.
So honor those relationships. And also, and this one is kind of key, and I think that aging people overlook this one, is to create new relationships,
Mhm.
make new friends. And this is how it dovetails with the last point that I made, which is that you start learning something new or learning something that interests you. Maybe you go to a class or a group about this interest, then you're going to meet new people. And of
Mhm.
those new people, hopefully you can make new friends. So my father says, never stop like expanding your circle, meeting new people. It seems a lot of aging people just sort of shut down their life and don't
Yeah.
talk to anybody new. And
Mhm.
he's advising against that. Keep meeting new people, talk to them, see who you vibe with, who you get along well with, and make new friends.
Yeah.
In addition to honoring the friends and family and important people in your life that you already have.
Yeah, is talk of relationships, and Iko is a
Exactly.
good one at that. She is good at the family level. I have been spending time with my dad the past few years. He's in his 80s, so I will tell him about this. So
Well, I
he's
actually that's so thank you, Aiko. I'm actually working hard to try and get the Japanese language edition of this book. We haven't gotten there yet. I have licenses in Korea and 2 licenses in China, and it's really a little strange because the first book, which I mentioned to you, Tuesdays with Morrie, which in Japanese is called Mori Sensei to no Kaiobi, was a huge hit. Aiko probably knows about it. Was a huge hit. It was published by the national broadcaster publisher NHK, this huge national organization in Japan. And the movie was a huge hit. It was really had a lot of fans. So I don't know why I'm having such a hard time getting a publisher for this book when I got one in Korea, I got two in China, I have, French, I have German, I have Spanish, I have Arabic. I don't have any Swahili version yet, but
you,
hopefully that will happen.
you'll get all of them. You'll get all
I
of
hope so. I hope so. I was really happy to get it in Arabic, and of course, both mainland China and Taiwan.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's an aside. We can go back to the 5 things. This is the
Yes, we
fifth
can go
one.
back there to the 5 things, actually 6 things, but for the
Well,
time
we'll see. I
that we
mean,
have now.
the sixth one is the additional one, is the bonus. But
Yeah.
the fifth
So,
one,
yeah.
the fifth one, I think that you'll appreciate because we talked about it earlier, and I know that you have a very rich part of your life, but this is not necessarily true for everybody. So my father said that it's important, and this happened for him later in life, to develop a spiritual connection,
Mm.
whatever that means for you. If it's an organized religion, that's fine, that's wonderful. If it's something more personal to you, or something that you find more abstract in nature, or whatever it is, my father is absolutely not putting any boundaries on it, but develop some kind of spiritual connection he felt was really important for a rich and full and happy life.
Hmm.
So it's really important that you think about what does that mean for you.
Yeah.
For you, Anthony, I think you have very clear idea what that means
Yes,
for
I
you.
do. Yes, I
Right.
do.
But a lot of people don't. That's the
Yeah.
thing. A lot of people don't think about that or have a very foggy idea, and they really need to investigate. What does it mean to have a spiritual life? What does it mean to have a spiritual connection?
They say
So,
that we are here to exist and then die. So then they don't care much about that aspect.
well, I mean, there's a lot of different angles we could talk about it from. You know, a lot of Eastern thought would not exactly say it like that, but they would not say that that's necessarily a bad thing. You know, that existence itself is the point. You know,
Mm,
people say, "What's the meaning of life?" And maybe a Christian will have one answer, or a Muslim will have another answer. But let's say a Buddhist can say the meaning of life is simply to be alive,
mm,
not
yeah.
no external meaning, let's say.
Okay.
But that's a personal thing. That's a very, very personal thing. And my father say, whatever is meaningful to you, however you experience it, and where you find your joy, that's right for you.
Yeah. Now to the bonus point.
Well, this one, I mean, it seems like this one is woven with all the other ones, so it won't sound so strange, but it's basically a little bit a part of all the ones that I said. Uh, Elderly people, and I would say people in general, get very sort of confused and try and like may either try and do too many things or don't try and do anything.
Mm,
Those are the two problems, right? And my father said, like, focus your energy, right? And you can see that that's part of all of the things that I mentioned, right? That's part
mm,
of laughter. That's part of meditation. That's part of learning and developing your interest. It's part of concentrating on your relationships and make them more stronger and more loving. It's part
mm,
of all of that. But
mm,
focus, whatever you're doing, focus your energy. Don't get like confused or um, you know uh, distracted
mhm.
from it, shooting around at all sorts of little unimportant things. No, focus your energy on what's really important in your life. I think that that's great advice for everybody you
Yeah,
know
that's great advice. That's great advice.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for sharing
You're
that with
welcome.
us.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
hope it's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
such an honor. Yeah.
I'll
Go ahead.
just say it again. So the book is called The Wisdom of Morrie. It is available in English all throughout the world. I mean, there you go. In the US, we have one publisher, but we have a worldwide publisher in English, Hachette, which is a very well known publishing company. And I've seen it all over. I mean, I've seen it in Japan in English,
Mm-hmm.
though actually the bookstore that I went to when I was in Japan recently had sold out of it. So that should tell you that there's interest. So hopefully we can get a Japanese edition, Japanese language edition. But I've seen it in Singapore. I'm sure that it's all over the English speaking world. I'll bet it's available in Kenya. I don't know if it's available in Greece. If you have English language bookstores in Greece, it may be available. They
Yes, we
would
do have
probably be the
English
Hachette
language.
version.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
when I'm walking around, I'll just throw an eye here and there and say, "Oh,
Yeah. Have a look.
I know where that book comes from."
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing it with us. And if people would want to follow up with you, or maybe know more about the book that we haven't covered in this short time that we are here, where should they go?
Sure. So I have a website. It's all in English. It's just wisdomofmorrie.com. Wisdom. There you go. You got it right there. Wisdomofmorrie.com. And you can reach out to me through that website. There's a contact us page. I encourage people to write to me with their ideas or reactions to the book. That's the main place. I have a lot of videos up there. I appeared on a lot of like national TV shows in this country, in the US, when the book was released. So those links are up there. There's links to reviews and stuff like that. Of course, you can buy the book on, all those online booksellers. So if English is okay for you, then, that's the place to do it. Like I said, I think it's pretty much available throughout the English speaking world. I know it's like all of the countries like New Zealand, Australia, India, Singapore, and stuff, it's available. But yeah, we're still working on some other languages. We actually don't have a Greek license yet, so we're working on that one.
You will get all of them. You will
Thank
get.
you so much.
And
Yeah.
with your energy, I know you stop at nothing. Just you stop at nothing. You get it.
Well, I'm very. It's about my father, right, and my father's legacy. I'm really honored to be able to, put this forward because Tuesdays with Morrie was such a huge success. Tuesdays with Morrie is a beautiful book, very thin book, and it's written by Mitch, right? Mitch is a fantastic writer, and it's him interpreting my father's ideas, right? This is directly from my dad. Like he wrote every word of this book. I mean, of course, I edited, I had to cut parts out. There was repetition, blah, blah, blah. I had to cut some sentences down, but it's his words. I added 2 essays, one at the beginning, one at the end, but the rest of it are all his words. And this was actually, some people sort of had a misunderstanding about this. They thought that I put this book together from notes or something like that he left. It's like, no, he wrote this manuscript from the first word to the last word. And I simply discovered it, edited it, added the essays, and published it. So it's my father's thoughts. And you can really hear his voice if you knew him, or if you watch the Nightline episodes that I mentioned earlier. They're on YouTube. Nightline with Ted Koppel. If you type in Nightline, Ted Koppel, Morrie Schwartz, there's 3 programs that he's on, and you can hear his voice and the way he talks, and you'll recognize it in the writing of this book.
Wow, wonderful. And don't we all now wish that we had a father like yours? And more to that, these days, if we have people who are going to look at what they can carry forward in their family, that would be good.
Yeah.
Someone who goes into the archives and gets a manuscript, edits it, and publish it. That's worth commending. Thank you very much for taking
Thank
that.
you, Anthony. I appreciate that.
Yes. Yeah, so it's been wonderful having you here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. It was great to talk to you. Hopefully, we'll meet in Athens someday. I hope so.
Yeah, that would be good.
If I get there, I'll reach out to you.
Or maybe somewhere in the States. You never know.
That's good too. If
We
you're
can
here, let
always
me
move
know.
from here to there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Give us some last words that we should always remember. I know you've told us quite much, but then just a few words that you will never forget, maybe from your dad or maybe from a general perspective on life. What should we never forget?
Well, I mean, I think that, that we get so, as I talked about earlier, so distracted by so many things. And I think that it's crucial to remember that really love is the basis of everything, right? And if you keep an open heart and if you're loving towards people, they will return that love to you. There's no doubt that what you put out there in the world, that's what comes back to you.
That's true. That's quite true. What you put out there in the world, that's what comes back to you.
What comes back, yeah.
Thank you very much once again. We really
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Anthony. I appreciate it.
That is coming from your host and is also coming from your listeners, represented by Eco. We thank you. Thank you too. And yes, Eco was thinking the same thing that you just left us with.
That's
Love,
great.
love. It's all about open heart, love, and sending some positive vibes out there because it will always come back to you.
That's right. That's right.
Yes. Also, thank you, Iko, for being here with us. And those also who watch silently or listen silently, thank you too for your time with us. We appreciate. This is all about this episode. We are signing off. This has been Now Tell Us. I have been your host, Anthony Morore. And together with our guest today, Rob Schwartz, we are saying, live life fully. Bye for now. Bye.